Okay, let me get my software back up here, open and live, and we will rock and roll. Pleasure to have you. Thanks for coming to spend a little time with us today. Just as a reminder, all the prior recordings are posted and up on our YouTube site. This one will go up after the call as well. This is our third in the series, so you can watch them or review them as you have time and want to go in and recap on any of the things that we covered in our prior meeting. Let me go over, see, Google crash. Yeah, see, one of those technology days. We'll get through it. But you can go through and look at the different ideas, case studies, and again, visit the YouTube site. We're putting up videos throughout the week there as we answer questions from different users that come in. We'll post them up as case studies or FAQs. You can subscribe to the channel, which is something that people will do. And then anytime we post new videos or updates, you'll just get an email to let you know that there's a new update there that's live and waiting for you as you have time to go back and take a look at it. So let's start here with the presentation. Again, feel free to chat your questions into the chat box there as you have them. We're going to try to have more time in this session. Starting next week, we're going to start inviting a guest speaker each week just to come in and spend a few minutes with us talking about a case study or a best practice that they would like to share from an interaction that maybe they've had with their client. So if any of you have case studies that you'd like to share, just email me and say, hey, I've got a great case study, and then I'll click on you and we'll be able to invite you to come in and share your case study live with the group. So let's get to it. We're going to talk a little bit about always today, how mindset meets skill set overall with the tool. I'm not going to keep reviewing this, but at the end of the day, we're really focused on what happens right here in this little window between the time and the energy that you've spent to get that particular mortgage loan in. I got to back up 1 second. All the money, the energy you've spent to get a lead in here, what happens when that lead comes in? And we're going to talk about a new format based on some feedback that I've gotten. One of the things I'm going to try to do is talk slower and move slower, because a couple of you emailed last time after the call that, man, we were jumping around going through different case studies and different ideas so quickly that you couldn't even follow. So I'm going to try to slow it down a bit, dial it back, cut back to maybe 6 cups of coffee before the call. But the real focus here, again, is licensing, CE money, all this money you've spent to develop a lead. What happens when you've got that opportunity to sit down and help a client with a specific problem or specific opportunity? This is critical, and we're going to put that in a different context today as we talk about some key metrics. Many of you know I used to have about 128 loan officers that I managed. We had over 20 branches in North Carolina, South Carolina, and as well as 8 REMAXs and Coldwell bankers, and we had a very specific process by which we managed our leads. So, or I shouldn't say managed our leads, but managed our people. There were these 3 key metrics that we focused on. And what I'm going to do is share with you those 3 key metrics today, and we're going to talk about how we will incorporate those metrics into our conversations with each other on these weekly calls. Now, our central premise from our experience and from the other work that we did was that if you want to increase your conversion rate, which we're going to talk about today, there were 3 critical questions that you needed to answer for your client. In any transaction, whether it's a purchase or a refinance, you had to get through that initial, do I have the cash now? Does this person have the current cash available to do the transaction? Does it make sense? Can I afford it now? Is really the same question, but it's then tied to cash flow. People live lives of cash flow. We did a series of workshops in Phoenix, Arizona yesterday for employees of a large financial services company, and our whole focus was on cash and cash flow. And we got into talking about the borrowing and their largest expense and why they have refinanced or why they have not refinanced. And that's going to be our central theme today for our simple idea. And that being focusing on a real simple approach to your first client interaction that will help you with your conversion rates. Because we've continued to hear consistently that the reason that many people have not taken advantage of lower interest rates, even though they could, will have to do with this one specific item that you can clear up very, very easily in your conversation with your client. And then lastly, can I afford it later? Meaning, is this really a good idea over time? Am I better off by doing this, by refinancing, paying closing costs, or buying this house versus renting, or whatever the case may be? We're always going to seek to frame the client conversation and presentation around these three terms so that they can understand, is this better for me to do this or not do this? Because again, this is not about selling someone into getting a loan. It's about helping to provide them a process where they can understand for themselves that this makes sense, providing what we like to call that clarity and confidence. That's the goal. If you can give a consumer the clarity that they need, they will become more confident. And when they are confident, they will take action. And what we're wanting to avoid here are the maybes. As we learn to be really effective liability managers and presenters, we want to get away from the maybes. It either makes sense to do this or it doesn't. And being able to identify that with your client in a clear, compelling, consistent, duplicatable, scalable, repeatable way can really help you to grow your business. Now, we've made some small updates this past week, but nothing major. Most of them have been tweaks to graphs and charts. We've got a few things that we'll be rolling out actually this afternoon. On a purchase scenario, we're going to give you the ability to put in a contract price and a value. In the past, we've used the contract price, and when you put a contract price in, say of $200,000, we've done the loan amount off that, but we've also used the contract price for the appraisal and for the future growth of the value. But a number of you have emailed us recently saying, I've got clients buying a house for $200,000, but it appraised at $220,000, and they're getting it at a discount. So what you're going to be able to do is you can put in the contract price of $200,000, and you'll be able to actually then put in the value at $220,000. That way, for future value appreciation, etc., we'll start off of that higher number. The default will be just to use the contract price on a purchase, but that'll now give you a little bit of additional flexibility. A couple other things like that, but nothing I'm going to really spend any time on today. Nothing major. I'd rather focus on some of the things that we started talking about last week. So let's talk about these key metrics for a second. When it comes down to key, sorry, this thing just wants to auto advance on me. Let me see if I can turn that off. Let's see. How do I turn off the... I should know how to use timings. Let me see if that'll do it. Keeps wanting to auto advance to the next slide without me telling it to. There we go. That seemed to help. Okay. So when we had our managers would tend to manage anywhere from one person, a small branch, outpost, to just themselves, to managing potentially 20 or 30 different loan officers. And what we found is that there were so many things going on in the lives of the loan officer. And I know we've got some financial advisors on the call today. I've just got to take one particular approach to this, or it'll get confusing if I try to go back and forth. So if you're a financial advisor, insurance agent, just mentally translate this into your world. But I'm going to speak from the world I know a lot about, and that is lending. When we had these loan officers and we sat down with them to see how they were doing, one of our goals each month was to review with them their progress towards their goals. How are you doing financially? How are you doing in the business? What can we do to help? And we found that we had to really simplify it and create a process where we did our reviews. And we found that this particular approach helped the loan officer greatly. It also helped the individual producers, because it gave them a very simple way to start thinking about and managing their business. So the first question was, how many opportunities per month did you have in the prior month? So this is a really simple thing for you to track. It just requires a little bit of discipline. But if I asked you right now, how many opportunities in the last month, last 30 days have you had? You should know that number off the top of your head immediately, because this is a critical driver for your success on a monthly basis. And we're going to talk about why, but it should be somewhat obvious. If you don't know, that means that you're not tracking it right now. And if you're not tracking it, if you're not measuring it, then you're not going to know when things really move the needle for you based on new activities that you're taking, etc. So you can do this on a spreadsheet, on a notebook sheet of paper. Just sit there and print out a calendar for the month, right, that's got each day in it. And when someone calls you to talk about a refinance or a purchase or another opportunity, that's an opportunity. Any kind of a real live consumer that you get a chance to talk to is an opportunity for you. Now, if you're like a lot of people, one opportunity a day is actually not such a bad deal. That means you're getting 5 opportunities a week or 20 opportunities in a month. And sometimes we might laugh at that and say, my gosh, I'm getting 5 a day. And then there are other times we all know where we would love for that phone to ring. It hasn't rung in days or even weeks. So my first question for you or challenge for you is, if you're not tracking that and you can't immediately tell me how many opportunities you had last month, then I want you to, starting today, I want you to create some kind of a simple system for you that allows you to track your opportunities so that you can say on a rolling 30-day basis, this past month I had 20 opportunities, I had 30 opportunities. The second metric, so we had the loan officers track this, and I'm again encouraging you to do the same. The second question we had for them, and this was easy for us because we knew the answer to the next 2 questions, was how many applications had they generated that month. So if I have 20 opportunities, I know that I can't have more than 20 applications. My applications are going to be a subset of that, and the question is, how many applications did you have last month? Now, most of you probably have a better idea. If you're in the insurance business, it might be insurance applications. But you still have to start with, how many opportunities did I have last month? And of those, how many of those opportunities led to an application? The person actually moving forward and saying, I want to do business with you. I used to say that they may want to do business with me, but they haven't done business with me until the loan itself actually closes. And so the third metric was closings per month. So this did a lot for us, and we're going to tie this back into the conversations we have on an ongoing basis about the software. But if you know what your opportunities are per month, and we knew what they were, or they could tell us how many people they talked to, what we saw, and it's really simple math, right, is that if last month they had 20 opportunities, and the next month they tell us they had 15, and the next month they tell us, well, gosh, I only had 10, we could actually do a wonderful job of forecasting not only what kind of production as a company we were going to have, but what kind of production that individual was going to have. And we could start really quickly to say, wow, we've got to do something to get you more opportunities, to get you in front of more people. Because if you don't have those opportunities, your application percentage is probably not going to change that much. And your closings per month, your conversion rate probably isn't going to change that much either. That is weird. The software, again, I've got a poltergeist today. Let me go back in here and reset this. All right, so think about that for yourself. So your opportunities per month, applications per month, and closings per month. And part of what prompted this for me was an Ellie Mae study that came out talking about conversion rates. So we're going to talk about that. So let's put it in this context here. Opportunities per month at the end of the day is all about your marketing. What are you doing to get out there and get in front of different people? Because it's not what you know, it's who knows you that's important in marketing. You can know a ton about lending, you can be a phenomenal presenter, but if you're not getting in front of enough people, you're never going to get the sales and stuff that you want. So we're going to, in our series going forward, I'm going to think in terms of what are the ideas and things that we can do to use this tool to help you increase your marketing, to get you in front of more people, to create more opportunities. The second thing is applications, and that's really the sales process itself. When I'm sitting down in front of someone and I'm going through this process of asking them questions and trying to understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish or that they need in that situation, I always want to have a feel for my sales process and what can I expect. And I'll share with you the number that we expected for a high producer from an application standpoint. Our top producers were converting about 75% of their opportunities were converting into applications. That means if they're seeing 10 people, we would expect about 7.5 applications out of that. And what we're talking about is learning to drive your business and understand your business from a basis of a couple of very simple metrics. Now, the third key metric that we talked about there was those conversions, and that's all about retaining the client. So I've gone out and I've done some marketing, and that creates some opportunities. I'm sitting down with people in the sales process, and sales to me is about understanding the specific need of that person and seeing if I'm the right person to resolve or solve that. If I do that, that person's going to apply with me and fill out an application. Then to get that application through from them wanting to do business with me to actually doing business with me and having a loan closed, that's how good a job do we do retaining that application and that customer through to closing. And that's all about conversion. So it's pretty simple. It's I'm either marketing or I'm selling or I'm retaining that client and getting them through the process. One really important thing that we learned over time is that retention can end with the closing itself, meaning that the loan closes and I'm done. But the more effective we were at marketing to that client post-closing, sharing, providing education, materials over time, the more effective we were at increasing the number of opportunities we had from those existing clients, to where if you do that effectively, maybe half of your opportunities each month are coming in from existing clients and half are coming in from your referral partners. So that retention can stop at closing, or that retention can continue and build for you a nice pipeline of ongoing opportunities. So let's talk about that tactically. And I'll tell you. All right, let's go forward one more. So this came out today, and I thought it was interesting. And it was Ellie Mae looking at conversion rates based on the tracking that they do of their portfolio of loans that come in. Because they don't know how many leads someone saw, but they know how many applications come into their system, and they know what percentage of those applications actually close. So they found that on a weighted basis right now, the average loan officer in the U.S. is closing 47% of their applications. I say a weighted basis because they're closing about 56% of their purchase applications and about 42% of their refinance applications. Refinance applications, though, were 61% of the current volume. So when you weight those out, you get about a 47% conversion rate. So now we have a benchmark that we can use, and you can have something to see, am I doing a better job or a worse job than the typical loan officer at converting my opportunities and my applications? So let's go back and now and look at what might be a typical month. If you follow this kind of a process, at the end of the month, you can say, I had 20 opportunities this month. That means that the marketing I'm doing, either to new referral partners or existing customers, has generated for me 20 opportunities. What kind of application did I generate from that? Let's just say that you're a top performer and that you're converting about 75% of those opportunities in the form of some kind of an application. Now that's probably high right now. So each of you would have to apply your own metric, but you know what that is. If you're tracking your opportunities, you know how many people you talk to. It's easy to look in your LOS or whatever and see how many actual applications did I generate. And then let's just apply that 47% number as your retention rate. That means those are the people that you retain from application all the way through to the closing table, and you close them into a new mortgage loan. All right, so let's do the math on that, see what that looks like. 20 opportunities coming in at 75% of those going to app and 47% going into closing. What you see there is 7 loan closings is what you would expect. If you had 100 opportunities in the insurance business and you convert 25% of those to apps and then you retain 80% of those, you do the same kind of a metric. But this was a really critical number from a management standpoint, both from an individual managing themselves, because we're all in the management business. If you have no employees and no loan officers, then you're managing yourself, because you have, from the time you get up until the time you go to bed, complete discretionary control for the most part of your time and where you choose to focus it. If you're currently getting 7 closings right now, then you can ask yourself, what are the areas and where can I focus? Can I do a better job of retaining the client post-application? Is that going to be the highest and best use? Can I do a better job of converting at the sales process my opportunities into an application? It's a lot of what BSA is really about. That's our sort of sweet spot, in the Bar Smart process, is helping you have that conversation and increase your conversion rate. Or do I really need to get out and see more people? Because I had loan officers that would come in and their opportunities for the prior month were 5. Well, if they had 5 opportunities and their goal is to close 6 loans a month, we knew that something was wrong right here in River City, right? There was just no way that was going to work. They had to really get out and see more people for them to have a chance to ever get to 5 or 6 closings a month. But you can apply this in your own life. Now, what does this really relate to? And it's interesting because it's been 10 years since I've really gone through this process. But if you go through and look at 7 closings out of 20 opportunities, it's about 35%. And that was actually a core number that we looked at in our organization to say, overall, we're probably going to close about 35% of the opportunities that we see. So that gives you a shortcut mentally to say, if I'm bringing in 100 leads a month, that's what it's going to take most likely for me to close 35 transactions a month. But if I'm bringing in 15 transactions a month, or 15 opportunities, and I'm closing 5, I shouldn't feel so bad about that. I want to improve it in any way I can, but I'm not going to get to 20 closings a month unless I get a lot more opportunities, a lot more eyeballs. So whether you're using the software or other strategies to get out in front of people, and we'll talk about it in the context of our software, how do you get in front of advisors and referral partners and existing customers and stuff, because we want to increase those opportunities. But we really want to focus on this area. How do we get these applications? Because I've had loan officers tell me their actual conversion rate on an opportunity to application is right now in the 10 to 20% range. And again, if that's the case, and some of that can be appraisals, it can be other things where they just know the deal won't work. But still, I'd like for you to start thinking in these terms. If you haven't, maybe track this for yourself over the next 30 days and see what numbers you come up with. And then we'll put a lot of the materials we put together each week into this context of what can we do to help you in marketing? What can we do to help you in conversion? What can we do to help you in your overall retention? All right. So that said, let's go through now and play with the software. We'll look at some case studies that came in. I was actually just typing them in or editing them earlier and getting them into a generic mode. We're going to look at a refi, an acceleration, as well as a refi, a debt consolidation today. And I mentioned, I did put up a little quick case study on YouTube that came in from a financial advisor who was looking at refinancing a client. And the client only had 5 years to go on an existing mortgage. And the advisor in this situation was trying to figure out, does it really make any sense for my client to refinance if they only have 5 years left on a mortgage? So my answer was, I don't know. Let's look and see. So I put this one up as a little YouTube case, but I'll just kind of talk through because I'm sure a lot of you didn't see that. This is the situation that came in. The client has a current mortgage today. I'll pull up the details. They have a house worth $500,000. They borrowed $250,000, and they were down to $85,000 on that mortgage, paying $1,784.04 per month. So the client doesn't really think it makes sense to refinance. They only have 5 years left, but they asked the advisor, should I do this? Am I right or am I wrong in saying that I shouldn't refinance at this point? So we looked at this from 2 different perspectives. The first perspective is, let's just look at what they're doing today, this current mortgage of $85,000. You can see here, there's 59 months to go. Does this make sense to refinance or not? Well, the first thing that I realized when I was talking to the advisor about this transaction was he was comparing their current 30 to a new 30. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense, because why would you get a new 30-year mortgage at 4 when they only have 5 years remaining? And we're going to talk about this theme of a simple way to frame your first conversation with a client around a debt-free or a target date, because it's a real simple way to do that. But I said we should be comparing this to a 5-year ARM, because that'll give them interest rate protection for the remaining term of their mortgage. And again, a lot of people get confused when you say remaining term on their mortgage, because their greatest fear, and I'll spill the beans here on my simple strategy for this week, is that what you're really doing is lowering their rate and extending their term. They really don't know how much of the savings that you're generating for them is truly a savings and how much of that is a loan term extension. So we're going to talk about how to frame that in a real simple two-step process with your clients. So a 5-year ARM protects that client from interest rate risk over the next 5 years because they'd have a fixed rate of 2.75. But you can see now what we're doing is we're going from a 7.5% loan they've had for quite some time to a 2.75 rate. And that's it from that standpoint. Now we come down to the closing costs. He estimated about $2,500 in closing costs. But as you'll notice here, we added that into the loan amount. The loan amount of $85,000 will be going up to $87,500. So in this example, we just assume that's going to get financed right in. Then we have our payment difference. Well, I can look at this. They're paying $1,748. This new 5-year ARM is only going to require a payment of $357 a month. That means they have an extra $1,391 a month that they have available as discretionary cash flow. And this is the critical part here. What we want to do is show that client, because the only way I can show them a fair apples to apples scenario is to say you're making $1,748.04 a month now. You would continue to make $1,748.04 on your new mortgage. So in other words, this $1,391 plus the $357, this you're going to pay the same amount towards this new mortgage, and we can look out over 5 years and see if this makes sense or not. And what we realized was it makes some sense. They're going to go from 59 months that they owe today to 54 months. And it's going to save them $8,761. And that's $8,761 with no out-of-pocket expense, and that's over a fairly short period of time, 5 years. I don't know if this client will move forward, but what I know is this particular advisor, who I happen to know as a friend, who called me to say, can you help me answer this question? I was able to answer that question. And if you do that for that advisor, they are going to contact you again with other opportunities. This client may come back and say, $8,761, that's worth it. And you can always translate that right into 8,761 divided by 54 payments, which is the number of payments that you would have left here. That's about $162 a month. You know, is it worth doing this, spending a couple hours of your life to throw off $162, a month over the next 54 months? And you can say this even another way. We talk about this in the class I mentioned. $162 saved is actually times 1.30, $210 earned. Because your client would have to go out and earn $210 to have about an extra $162 left over to spend after tax. Because for most of us, we're paying, marginal tax brackets of somewhere between 25 and 30% on our payroll with FICA, FUTA, Medicare, and everything all combined. So I always like to think of terms of this is your wealth impact. $86.71 in savings is probably more like $10,000 or $11,000 in earnings, just to kind of create a benchmark. Now, the advisor did email back and said, hey, one other question they had, they plan to be in this house for a long time. That's why they want to pay it off. But they're really focused on saving for retirement right now. And, what if they just did something different, like got a new 30 and maybe took a loan out of 250? What would that look like? And it was real easy to do. All I had to do was duplicate the 5-year ARM. I changed it to a 30-year fixed. I put the loan amount of 250 in here, and the closing cost wouldn't change, right? Now the payment's going to change, right? Now I've got a payment of $1,194. I still have $554 a month in cash flow, but you can see at closing, what do I have? I have $162,500 left over at the closing table. Now, advisors can't solicit that. Advisors can't solicit their clients, and they shouldn't, to take cash out of their house and invest. But this was more, I just want to know, what would that look like? What would that do for them financially? But it's interesting, when we looked at this over time, putting that 162.5 in an investment account at 6% interest, and saving that money instead of repaying it. So that means all this money is going to go into a savings account. When I go out over a longer period of time, say 20 years they're going to be in the house, wow, this jumped up to about $157,000 of wealth impact compared to about $88,000 savings just going with the new 5-year ARM. So they could use this as a way to build their wealth and grow their wealth. But starting off, this was more a personal curiosity for him. He may come back and say, gosh, they're really interested in doing that. We did talk about it, and that would mean what? Taking out a new loan, focusing that higher loan amount, and saying I still got positive cash flow, but then investing that 162.5 and letting it grow at 6% over the next 20 years. So that's just an example, kind of a way to think about and talk through these different scenarios. And let's go through a couple more. Again, if you have any questions as I go through these, feel free to throw them out. But when you are thinking about a shortened term, make sure that you reflect that. I've had people say, I'm looking at refinancing to a 30-year, but I want to pay it off in 7 to 10 years. Well, then going to a 30-year term to pay off something in 7 to 10 years doesn't make any sense. Compare it to refinancing to a 7 or a 10-year product where you get that extra lower interest rate, which will help them further accelerate the payoff of that loan over the time period that they have. Let's take the hesitant refinancer, and this will embody my case study idea or my marketing idea of the day. So I was out there doing these workshops with these consumers. Now, these consumers were financial advisors and people that work for a large financial institution. That means they might be underwriters, they might be any number of different things. And what they had in common was that most of them owned a home and were facing some of these same questions themselves. Some of them had talked to their advisors and some of them hadn't. And when I asked people if they hadn't refinanced now, why hadn't they refinanced? Apart from the ones that said, I just don't know if my house will appraise, the majority of the people were concerned about their loan term. There's still a belief that if I've got a 30-year mortgage and I've already paid 5 years on that mortgage, I only owe 25. I don't want to get a new mortgage at 30 years because I don't want to extend my term back out. And the problem with that is there's a misunderstanding, right? Because even if you go to new 30, you could always get a 25 or a 20. You could get a shorter term mortgage. But you could also say, we can get a 30 and apply your payment today towards the new mortgage. What that allows you to do is to show someone very simply the financial impact and how much faster you can get them out of debt in a short period of time. So I'm going to show you an example of a case study here that came in that was on a refinance acceleration that was following this exact same path. And what I want to encourage you to do is in your presentations for your clients, the software will allow you to do some very sophisticated illustrations. But for some of you who are maybe newer in it, I want you to focus on doing two things. Simply show the client on a refinance opportunity their current payment today compared to their new payment and the future payoff date. That's it. We're just going to simply show them this is what you're spending now. This is what you're going to spend on the new mortgage, the same amount. And let me show you what that will do for you. Because this is going to help you to eliminate that concern that people have about extending their term. So this particular example that came in, all right, the client here has a mortgage with Wells Fargo. They property value is $285. The original loan amount was $210. They owe $198 right now. Is what they owe on it. This particular mortgage they've only had for a couple of years. But when they took it out, they thought this is probably the last time we're going to refinance, right? 5.75. It's not a bad rate. And their concern, and I've shared with some of you guys who've been on some prior calls, my dad, when we talked about refinancing his house, it was the same thing. I've only got like 22 years to go. I don't want to get a new 30. So people in their mind know that they can save on the interest rate, but they're struggling a lot of times with this term conversation. So this client is thinking, I've got 312 months to go. So this is a real simple scenario here should I refinance and pay the closing costs if I've got a 5.75 mortgage to a new 30, in this case at 201, because we bumped it up to cover the closing costs. You don't have to do that. I just like to do that as a default. And this particular person was quoting a 3.975 interest rate for this particular customer. So real simple closing cost scenario. All right, you can have about $3,000 in closing costs. The question has come up quite a bit on do I do a good faith estimate first, and do I get an exact number and stuff. And to me, this is a conversation that you're having with the client. If you want to go in and do a full good faith estimate to get exact closing costs and stuff, that's fine. But you've now triggered the entire good faith related process. There are 6 items that if you collect 6 items in the process itself, you trigger full disclosures. And this process that we've designed for you here only collects 4 of those 6 items. So you're not collecting Social Security number in most cases. You don't need to collect property address. If you get their name, their income, their property value, you're really collecting 3 or 4 of the 6 items. Now, I'm not telling you not to do disclosure. I'm just saying that the goal here is to have you have a very simple sales presentation process that gives people excited about what it is that you're showing, so that you can then fully commit to go into a full good faith, truth in lending, and all the other stuff that you might want to do. And that's up to you to decide, but that's the way this has been designed. My closing costs here, if I know in North Carolina, it's about $1,780 in closing costs plus whatever origination or discount fees that might be charged. So most of us have an idea. If you want to do a very detailed good faith, or you want to do some very detailed and give them exact numbers, that's up to you. But I tend to like to just say, look, we're going to have about $3,000 closing costs. We can roll that into the loan amount, so there's going to be no net out of pocket. And we're answering that first question, does this make sense to you now from a cash flow standpoint? If I can do this purchase or this refi with no cash out of pocket, is that something that you want to consider? And obviously you can always do a duplicate here and put one right beside it where they don't roll it in, and see which one is better financially for that client. And we'll do that here in a second. Rate comparison, I can see the payment difference is $268 a month. So now I know that's what I have available. And remember, my recommendation for you is to try this and just to simplify your presentation process and focus on, this is the closing cost. We've got that covered. This is your new payment. We're freeing up $268. Clients get this. My payment is going down because my interest rate is going down. But what do they struggle with? They struggle with that term. And then you simply click the fixed payment. You're spending $1,225 now. You're going to continue to spend $1,225.50. The difference is you only have $957 that you have to pay towards the mortgage. We're going to pay the extra $268 towards your mortgage so that you're paying the same payment. Now let's look out at whatever time frame. And I like to pick a time frame that highlights this illustration. So I went out 25 years. Why 25 years? Because the mortgage liabilities for their current loan at 25 years are still $13,426. Whereas here, my mortgage is already paid off. Not only is it already paid off, but because it's paid off, I've actually started putting that difference into my savings account, because to be fair, I'm still spending $1,225.50 a month. But if my mortgage is paid off, that's savings for me now. And you can see for this client, it's going to save them $101,524. And the important thing is their concern was what? Term. You have 312 months to go. We're taking you down to 237 months. That's your debt-free date going forward. So you're again, it's a very simple process, very simple presentation, because all you're going to do for the client is cover how are they going to handle their closing costs, what's their payment savings going to be, and then apply that payment savings towards their existing mortgage and show them the months to free debt date. If you do this, you will simplify and increase your conversion rates, because you're helping people to answer not only the 3 questions they have, but what we keep hearing is the biggest obstacle from advisors, from clients, etc. And again, I'm focusing a little bit on refinances right now because that's 2/3 of the volume out there. And in the last couple of weeks, I've been in a lot of contact with, again, a lot of financial advisors, doing some workshops, seminars, etc. And I'm asking them, why are clients that you have that you know need to refinance not refinancing? And it's usually one of two things. They don't feel like they should pay closing costs because it's not going to be worth it, and they don't want to extend their term. And you can answer those questions bam, bam, very quickly here. Now let's say that the client, or let's say for yourself personally, you were trying to decide whether or not this makes sense to roll the closing costs in. We'll just click duplicate. So now we've got the exact same scenario here, right? But let's take this down to 198 as the loan amount. And all I had to do was change one field and everything else should be done for me. Here I have no closing costs here. I'm going to have to pay the $3,000. Does that affect my payment? Sure. My savings is $268. My savings now is $283. I've got more savings. The question is, which is better for me over time? Over 25 years, I'll save $101,000 here. I'll save $107,000 here. Debt-free in 237, debt-free in 232. So if the client has an objection to paying cash out of pocket, then this is still a way to help them without them doing that. If they're willing to pay the cash out of pocket, you can see here that they're better off by another $6,000 over that time period. But again, making that comparison was very, very simple. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, if this client needed more support and you wanted to create even more Shazam moments for them, then you could come over here, click the Use Same as Borrow tab, and now graph this out a little bit and say, look, let's just kind of look at it over time. Here's where you would be in 25 years with your mortgage balance. Here's what I'm going to recommend. If you're comfortable paying the closing costs, then let's do the loan amount for $198, have you pay the closing costs. And now you can visually show them what we showed on the other page, that you're debt-free in 19 years and 4 months, but that extra cash flow that you're going to be spending up here, I like to show it like this. See, you're still spending that same amount up here, right? This is still being applied towards your debt. You got no debt here. So we're going to take that payment that was going towards debt, and you're going to get to put that in your checking or savings or investment account, and it's going to start growing here for you. And of course, you could do other cute things and say, you know, if you had an extra $100 a month, you could add that and see what that would do and see how that would accelerate things as well. All right. So I don't see any questions coming in right now. Again, if you have them, put them in there. I'm going to do the second case study that came in on debt consolidation. This is one that came in actually earlier. So let me see. I just started putting it in. Let's see if I've got it all in here, and if not, we'll kind of do it as we go, and then we'll see what questions you have or things you might want to ask about or model. So this is the debt consolidator family of $68,000 a year in gross income, 25% state and federal tax bracket, and they had a mortgage, an auto, a credit card, and a credit card. So we've got the different things over here, their interest rates, their balances, and their payments. The client had some medical bills and really needs to get their cash flow lowered. Now, one of the things that in this case, this one also came in from another advisor, an institution I work with. The client had done a 15-year fixed. So they were in sort of a rush to get that mortgage paid off. That's what they thought they wanted to do. The problem is they were committing to a higher payment that now, with some other expenses that they've had to put on their credit cards, they're a little bit strapped for cash. So the real goal here is to get the cash flow lowered. So you want to keep that in mind when you're doing an actual presentation for the client. If their goal is lowering cash flow, then whether or not you really want to focus on the wealth impact may not be as relevant, because what you really may want to do is simply show them what is going to be the best option for them over time to, again, accomplish their specific goal. So we know they have $170,000 in borrowing. At an average pre-tax rate of 5.8 and an average after-tax of 4.7. Their monthly outflow is $1,885 per month, and their tax reduction here is about $148. We can see the term for each of their debts. They have 161 months, 54, 55, and 69. So if we go with something like a 30-year fixed, and we'll just put in a 30-year fixed here, at 80%, they can only go to $160,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm like, okay, if I owe 170 and I can go to 160, I can't really consolidate all of these debts. So I'm going to have to choose something here that I don't consolidate right now. And I'm going to pick the auto, because that's my biggest debt, and it's not at the highest interest rate. So I select no here. And you'll notice now it's going to leave that auto at 18,000 here. So my new borrowing now, I'm currently borrowing 170, and now this would take my borrowing up to 178. And I'm like, I don't really want to increase my borrowing. They don't need cash right now. They need cash flow. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to drop this back down to about 153. So I'm just looking at the numbers above here, and this is where my scratch board is allowing me to sort of get this set up. So they owe 170. Now they're going to owe 171. I'm putting 153 at 76.5% into this. I'm consolidating and paying off their current mortgage and their credit cards. And then I can look down below here and see how that's going to work from a cash standpoint at closing. I don't have any closing costs in here yet. So I need to go in here and put in my closing costs. So I'll pop this up, and let's just say I think the closing costs are going to be about $2,500. But I do want to include that in the loan because I don't want them to have to come out of pocket with cash. So I save that, and you'll notice that just bumped me up here to 155.5. So now I'm going from borrowing of 177 to 173.5. But their goal was to reduce or to increase their cash flow. So one of the big things I'm changing is that mortgage that they had on a 15-year note. I'm going to take that to a 30 to try to relieve some of their cash flow concerns. So now again, first question, if this client wanted to do this, could they afford to do this? Well, in their current situation, there's no cash to keep what they have out of pocket, but they're going to have to spend $2,500 out of pocket here. So their closing cost is $2,500. That's a red number. They're getting $2,800 cash at closing. So we've got a little cushion here. We're going to be able to help them if they want to have no out of pocket. The second question is, what's the cash flow going to look like? Is this really going to help? And we can see here, going from the 15 back to the 30 and consolidating that debt in this situation is going to free up $746 a month in positive cash flow for that client. Now, going back to the simple idea we talked about before, this is discretionary cash flow. They need it right now. They may not need it in 3 months or 6 months. I don't know, but they're really looking to free up cash flow. I'm doing that for them. But I can come down here and click repaying and say you're spending $1,885.98 now. If you were to continue spending $1,885.98, the same amount each month, you'll notice that you would have been debt-free in 118 months, paying off all of your debts the way you were paying them off. You could be debt-free in 111 months. Now, that would not be the case if they make a minimum payment, and I want to just show you the difference. If I click minimum payment, then it says the minimum payment that they have to make right now on this debt is $1,886. They're going to be debt-free in 161 months, but they have to pay that $1,886 a month. If I just make my minimum payment here, I only have to pay $1,140. And that's the total for all of my current debts above that I'm keeping, right? Which is, and again, it's all total for you below. What am I keeping here? I'm keeping this new mortgage of $1,555, or I'm sorry, of $749, and I'm keeping the auto $390. So my minimum payment right now is going to be $1,140, and that'll change once the auto is paid off. But this is their current payment difference. So I can see that there's a difference here, right? I'm going to be debt-free in 360 months in this scenario, making the minimum payments over time. But I could still compare this the way we talked about for the client. Keep it fixed, keep it repaying, and say, look, you're still better off getting this 30 and consolidating your debt in terms of the potential to be debt-free. But what we're opening up here is some discipline risk or some real life situations where they may need that $746 because of their current cash flow situation to live, to pay other bills, to pay for food, clothing, and things like that they need. And when that passes in a year or two, whatever the time frame is, you can begin to apply that cash flow towards your new mortgage and your new debt and get that paid off as quickly as possible. But note what I'm saying here. I'm showing you this below, but I might not even want to show that in this situation. If the client's goal and objective is, can we help my client free up cash flow? That's the most important thing for them right now. then my goal is to illustrate for them that, yes, I can do that, and here's how. And I'm able to do that up here with the scratch board to say, this is what you've got, this is what I would recommend, and this is our big obstacle is closing costs. I've taken care of that for you here. We're keeping you under 80%, so there's no MI, and I can free up $746 a month. And that's the presentation that I would make back to that particular client and that particular referral partner in this case. And if they wanted to go into more detail, I'm fully equipped to go in and talk about the financial impact of those payments being, applied towards the debt or going to savings or wherever else. But if that's not the current goal is cash flow, then don't go in and show stuff and solve problems that aren't necessarily relevant to the person right now who has a very clear, very specific opportunity, situation, or need. Focus on what you want to do for them today. I don't need to show graphs and charts on this. It's pretty straightforward. I can probably come in on one like this, and for this particular client, just click the 2-page simple summary, and I've got what I need to be able to sit down with that particular client or that particular advisor and say, look, here's what's going on today. Here's what you got today. Here's what I'm recommending. All of it's summarized. Here's your old payment. Here's your new payment. There's your cash flow. There's your tax impact at closing. Here's your savings. You're still going to save $10,429 over the next 7 years, and your break-even's 13 months, and you could still be debt-free in 111 months if you wanted to take all this savings that you've got and apply it towards your existing mortgage. And I can show the monthly payment difference breakout, and I can go through and show the closing costs. And again, we're only printing on the reports the stuff that you show in the software itself. So I can make this into a real simple client presentation that they can say, yes, this is something I'd like to do, or not. If I want to do the full-blown money, I can go through and build all the reports and stuff. But again, my message here is keep it simple. If you want to increase your conversion rates, then you want to do that by going through and understanding the problem. You got to have lots of opportunities, right? We talked about that, having as many opportunities as you can here. And then the application process itself. If you're going to get an application, okay, the application is the paperwork after you've identified what the problem or opportunity is for that client, and you've been successful in presenting to them the options that you have available for them. Do a good job there. You'll get a high level of applications, which will increase your sales, and you'll get a much higher level of retention. Because a lot of the fallout in retention is people losing track of why they began the process 20 or 30 days ago with you. They just simply aren't clear. It gets lost in the mounds of paperwork. That's why you want to, in your sales process, sit down, identify the opportunity, and give that person a very clear picture of what it is that you're going to do for them and how you're going to help them. That's what will get them through the paperwork and the more difficult process of getting the loan itself actually closed. So those are the 2 case studies for the week. And from a simplicity standpoint, if you haven't done something like this before, I challenge you just to simply go through and as a rule of thumb, provide a simple strategy based on what's your current payment today and benchmark that and show what that current payment today will do towards a new future payoff using those savings going forward. So we've got a lot of cool things, gotten a lot of great suggestions from you guys and other users that have come in. We're continuing to work on those, but I want to see if maybe there are any specific questions you have, things you want to learn to do, features you want to talk about. This is your time now, and just let me know in the chat box what you'd like to cover, and I'll go over and spend a few minutes answering your question or modeling whatever it is that you think would be helpful. Hey, Harj, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I've read some of your stuff. If you're the Harj Gill that I know and love as a debt accelerator and guru extraordinaire. Yep, that's you. Cool, man. I love your stuff too. Read your book. I got it sitting here on my shelf somewhere. So any questions, anything you want to model or things that you want to say, hey, next week could you talk about how to desktop share more effectively, or how do you do a debt consolidation or acceleration scenario, or anything like that that you think would be helpful. We've got 50 calculators. We've only pulled about 14 of them over. We're trying to prioritize the other 35 some odd calculators that we've built and move them into this format. So that's another question I have for you as you're playing around using the tool. If you have some specific calculators you'd like to have over here as standalone calculators, let us know and we'll incorporate them. And one of the new things we're working on is getting our whole investment property analyzer, which is now an Excel document, into a new module so that you can do investment properties. Because, gosh, I think it was 26% of all sales last quarter were investment buyers. So we want to be able to allow you in your presentation to actually do a true investment property analysis with cash flow and depreciation and some of those kinds of things that are a little different than a typical, purchase or refinance transaction. So those are some of the new features and things that we're working on. So any other questions? Anything you want to model or take a look at before we sign off here? Chat away or give me an email if you have a question. We'll be happy to get it in there for you. All right, cool. So we're at our hour. Hopefully you maybe picked up a few ideas. How would you show a video of yourself when you send the analysis to a potential client? I use Jing. So that's a good question. We are actually exploring a couple of tools that would allow us to embed the live video into the tool. We've not done that. We've always used Jing or Snagit. But let me just kind of, if some of you guys are not familiar with Jing, thanks, Arthur. It's a free tool. It's just jing.com. Oops, no, it's jingproject.com, excuse me. Jingproject.com. And you install it, and it's a free download. So go to jingproject.com, and it says free download, and it puts a little icon in the top of your screen. And you can click that icon, and you can record your screen. You can also put a picture of yourself in the screen as well if you want to do that, and make your recording, and you automatically upload it for free into their screencast tool, and it gives you a secure link that you can send to a client to watch your video. So this is one way to do it. It's how I do it when I'm doing simple little sharing videos. My favorite project, which is by the same company, is called Snagit, and it's a one-time charge, I think, of $47. And what this does is it gives you the ability to capture anything on your screen: images, pictures, videos, the whole 9 yards. Unlimited length of videos, much higher quality. You can immediately upload them to either a secure link, that way only your client can view your video, or you can upload it to YouTube if you're wanting it to be more public. On a client video, obviously, I would just upload it with a secure link that you can send the client. But I've used this tool for so long, and I love it because it gives me much more flexibility. When you embed video into an application, typically you can only record in that application. And a lot of the folks that we work with that do screen recordings for their client presentations often might want to also record, show the credit report, show something else, show a chart or graph. And you're not limited with these kinds of tools because, again, for a one-time $47 fee for life, you've got something here that you can use to record your screen and do a lot of other stuff with on a day-to-day basis. Again, you can embed yourself or embed and copy and view just about anything. Can you do a sample? Sure. So I'll open Snagit. All right, so I'm running the program right now, and this is the interface that comes up. And it says, what would you like to capture? And really the only thing, there's a lot of stuff here. I don't know what 99% of this because I don't use it. I can capture an image. I can capture text. That's like OCR, like if I want to scan a document and capture all the text in it and put it in a Word document, I can do that. Or I can capture video. So the two that I use are capture image and capture video. So I'm going to click capture image. And if I click capture image, it will go through and bring up these crosshairs here. And let's say I want to capture this part of the screen right here. So I click that, and there it goes. Here's that image, and I can doctor it. I can put little pointers on it. So let me show you. I'll even show you a more practical application. let's say that you're in the software. Continue session. Let's say that you're in the software and you've just done this presentation, and what you really want to show and highlight for the client is this savings. So then all I have to do is say, I want to send an image to my client, and I can come in here and just drag that image right here around this box. And here I've got my image, right? And now I can click the email button right within the software, and it's going to open up my email program, and I could send them this image, and all I do is say, yes, I'm okay with that. And see, it puts that image right in my email, and I can send this to the client and say, I just did a plan for you. I can save you $746 a month. Give me a call. So for some people, I think it's even simpler to not send a complicated video, just send an image. But the other option is I can go through and say I want to actually send a video. I just click the video button, and I click record, and the same thing happens. And now I drag the cursor around my screen. And again, this can be any screen though, not just the application you're in. And it's now ready to record. It says I'm ready to go. And I hit the record button. And now what's happening is it's going to count down 1, 3, 2, 1, and boom. And now I'm recording. And it allows me to go in, and anything that's inside of that rectangle there is going to be recorded. So I can go through and talk about what I'm doing for them. Or I could go through and bring up the presentation itself, and I could talk to that. So I'll go through and let's just say instead of showing the actual screen, maybe I want to go through and show them the PDF and talk about that. I know I'm doing a ton of processing here, so hopefully it's not clipping out here on me. But so maybe I bring up the client presentation here I just generated, and I want to go through and show them the presentation and talk about it and say, hey, we've got these 4 debts you just did. Here are the balances and the payments. Here's the closing cost impact. Here's your cash flow. And I'm just going to talk through this. Instead of sending them the report, I'm going to send them this little quick video. When I'm done editing my video, I simply click the stop button, which is down here in the corner. I'm actually recording this as well, so I'm recording the recording of the recording. And here it shows me the video. It's right here. I just finished it. I can play it and watch it. And you'll notice here I can upload it to Screencast. So one click, I upload it, and it gives me a secure link for that client. So I just click the button, and it immediately starts uploading it. It usually only takes, it says your upload is happening. Usually only takes about 30 seconds. So you can see the progress here. It's pretty quick. It's uploading that video right now that I just recorded for my client. And now it's done, but I can do all kinds of cool, I can annotate it, I can come in here on that video, I can draw on it, but I've now got that link. So I can now paste that link into email and send that client a video link. So it's a good question, it's a great tool. Again, we're looking at embedding it, but all of the solutions we've looked at so far have had so many limitations comparing it to, say, what you can do with a free tool like a Jing or a paid tool like a Snagit, that it's just hard for us to really want to build something in that we think is inferior. If we can find a better solution or an equal solution, then we will build that into the tool. And we are looking. We actually had a conversation this morning about it. So thanks for your question. Jeff, I see you're going to send something over. Cool. I'll take a look at it, and I'll just email you back on that since we're getting pretty far past the hour, and I would need to pull it up and look at it. But I'll look at it and send you something right back over. Ken had asked, can you tell us what the calculators you have? Perhaps we could all share as to which ones got. Yeah, let me try to pull together a list. We've got them in Java and a couple different languages, so we have to get them all over into HTML5 so we can put it into the software itself. So, I don't want to create more work if you're not going to use them, but if you think, what I'm really curious about is you find yourself going, gosh, I really want to be able to calculate this one specific thing, then we would go through and see if one of our calculators, it'll just help us to prioritize which calculators we move over. But I'll see if I can go through and get a list of everything together, and then we could send that out and let people, know about what we have, and you can let us know what sounds good to you. Cool. So I'll get back to you, Jeff, and thanks everybody for spending some time today. Have a fantastic day. Wish you the best. And as always, let us know how we can help you in any way. Take care. All the best.